Hey everyone, so in our last video we talked about 5 easy tips on pruning roses, and that was specifically more geared towards our shrub roses. But one of the most unforgettable sights in our garden is this white wall, or the old patina wall that we had, completely sprawled with roses from this climbing rose. This one here is Gertrude Jekyll, and today I'm going to show you how to prune this climbing rose with just 2 simple steps using the methods that we talked about in that first video. So the first step when it comes to pruning climbing roses is to get rid of the old and undesirable branches. Being that this Gertrude Jekyll is only on its 3rd full year here, there's not going to be really any old growth on this rose, but what we do want to do is get rid of those undesirable branches, meaning some of the weaker branches and just stuff that's already dead that you really don't want here. On a lot of older climbing roses, you're going to have some very thick canes or main canes that are getting kind of old, and you may want to prune out some of those, but that's for some of those climbing roses that are a little bit more mature in the garden. First thing we want to do, like always when we prune in our garden any roses, is to go ahead and disinfect any tools that we're going to use so we don't pass on any diseases or bacteria from one rose to another. All right, so as I stated, you want to get rid of some undesirable branches here. And there's really not any old or dead wood here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just start pruning some of the more weaker ones, or again, like I said, undesirable ones that I want. I know it's got some growth and that might be hard for some of you to do, but trust me, it's gonna benefit your rose in the long run. So a lot of the weaker ones, I'm gonna go ahead and prune out of here. And you're gonna wanna prune those flush to the main stem. Now, another thing I would suggest when working with climbing roses is a good pair of gloves, because Gertrude Jekyll here has a lot of thorns. I normally don't use gloves. Sometimes I do. It just depends on how crowded it is. Further along down the season, I will wear gloves only because there's a lot more foliage and you need to be a little bit more careful on where you're grabbing these canes from. Then if you have any growth that has old buds from last year that weren't pruned, go ahead and take those off right at the tip there. All right, so now that I've got rid of some of the old growth and some of the unwanted growth in there, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and untie some of these branches here, because I want it to completely open up and see what I'm working with and start working with the shape or form. All right, so because I'm gonna be working with the canes here, I went ahead and put on some gloves so I'm not stabbing myself all over the place with these thorns. But as you can see here, as I undo this rose, we've got some pretty long growth here. That might not be picked up on the camera because I've only got it to so wide of an angle, but as you can see, these canes are pretty long. We're gonna go ahead and trellis that the rest of the way that way. I was just letting it grow a little bit more. We did get this new fence, so we're gonna be able to tie that up, put some more stakes in the ground that way, and just let this rose basically crawl its way all the way down the fence there. And we have some other canes here that we're probably gonna get rid of. This one here, as you can see, I have that one tied up. But what I wanna do is I wanna go ahead and untie that one, because we had that on top, but we have plenty of growth already going on top there. So I wanna grab this one here because it is a cane, one of the main canes, and I wanna go ahead and pull that one out and possibly tie this one here somewhere towards the center, and just let that fill out the whole fence here. That's to not go so high above the fence here, because climbing roses grow best on lateral shoots. That's what we want to do, is get those canes and just turn them lateral and let the horizontal growth come out from there. All right, and so with that being said, talking about the lateral growth, like I said, climbing roses are very easy to prune. It's just 2 simple steps. The next step is going to be to look at those lateral shoots, because again, like I said, most of the growth is going to come from lateral shoots. So what you want to do is go around your rose and look at all these lateral shoots, and you want to prune it down to maybe about 2 to 5 sets of buds to promote more growth around that lateral stem right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and prune that there. This one here is a little bit thicker. I know there's some growth right there, but I want to do is I want to go ahead and prune it right about maybe a ½ inch above a bud. That way you don't damage the bud, but you also don't leave too much to make that susceptible to disease or any type of bacteria that's going to get in there. And we're just gonna go around and do that. Like, these are pretty fine. They're already showing some growth. I don't wanna touch those too much. It's got about 2 to 5 buds. So all that right there is looking pretty good. This one here, I'm gonna go ahead and take it down a little bit more. I see a bud right there that's looking promising. This one has some growth right here, but I wanna go ahead and pull it back to that bud there. And then these that are coming out this way, I don't want so much growth coming out this way. I want it to grow up and across the way there. So I'm gonna go ahead and prune it to a bud down here, and hopefully we'll get some growth to just go up that way. Same thing for this one here. And I know it looks pretty brutal. It might be hard for some of you to do this because it looks beautiful already. Spring is already here and you got some growth coming out here. You really don't wanna mess with it too much. But again, like I said, this kind of pruning is gonna benefit it very, very much, and it's gonna look absolutely beautiful once spring is in full effect. That hot weather comes and just bathes these roses and makes it look beautiful once it blooms. All right, so like this one here, this is a whole lateral cane, and I have a shoot that popped up from this lateral cane. Now, it's pretty long, but what I don't want is I don't want any of the energy going to that lateral cane, especially if I'm gonna tie this at a horizontal angle, because I want most of the energy to go into this main cane right here that's gonna promote better and bigger growth. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's 2 simple steps when it comes to pruning your climbing roses. It's fairly easy. It's not difficult at all. Climbing roses are beautiful roses. You don't want to treat these like shrub roses because obviously you want them to continue to grow. You want them a fairly good size so they look beautiful once it comes time to bloom. A shrub rose, you're going to want to take that down a little bit because you're going to get repeat bloomers. That climbing rose is going to bloom maybe twice, maybe 3 times in a season. That first one being in spring, then that second one being midsummer, and then you might get that late fall flush. But again, you want to keep it at a nice looking shape and size so you get those big beautiful blooms. You don't want to cut it too far back unless, like I said, you got some old growth or some undesirable growth or some weak branches here and there that you just want to absolutely get rid of. So that's going to be it for this tutorial, guys. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around the garden and just prune up some of the other climbers that we have in the garden and tie this one up a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer. But again, that's it for the tutorial, guys. If you want to stick around and watch us prune the rest of this climbing roses, you're more than welcome to. If you were just here for the tutorial, we absolutely thank you for being here. Give this video a like, subscribe, so you can keep up to date with what we're doing with our roses this season in our garden. So let's go on and check out the other climbers and give those guys a little bit of a pruning as well. All right, so if you're still here with us, we have another Gertrude Jekyll here on the other side of the fence. This one, she's a bit more unruly because she gets a lot more sun, so she's kind of sprawled out all over the place. It's gonna take a bit more work to work on this Gertrude right here to get her nice and formed up to the fence here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do what I do every time we prune, is go ahead and clean our pruning tools just in case there's some bacteria or anything on that last rose we just pruned. Get these nice and clean. And again, just going back to the 2 simple steps is just prune out the old growth and some of the unwanted or undesirable growth here. And looking at this one, I see a lot of undesirable growth. And when I say undesirable growth, I'm talking about a lot of spindly stuff that's going on here that is really not gonna produce any big blooms. It's gonna produce some blooms, but nothing great, big, and beautiful. So I wanna go ahead and get rid of that smaller, thinner growth because I want all that energy to go to the bigger canes there. Those little ones are just gonna suck up more energy than what they actually need to. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down this one here. As you can see, this is one of the smaller canes. It's not as thick yet, so I wanna go ahead and prune this back to a couple buds, some of them flush. So as the season gets going, we have some energy going to that cane to thicken it up and make this a nice, viable, and pliable cane to go ahead and train across the fence here. And again, just keep going. Any of the thin growth here, I'm gonna prune that one back, fairly small. This one's sticking out here. That's very thin, so I'm gonna go ahead and prune that one back completely. Try not to get stuck here in the face. I have another one here that's coming out the side here, which is pretty promising because it's got all this growth here, but there's that thin portion that it's coming from. That's not what we want. And I'm getting stabbed over here on the side by Litchfield Angel. That's one of the roses we did in the last video where we talked about the 5 tips when it comes to pruning roses the easy way. Then I have this one here that's kind of coming out here. It's on a main cane. Being that this fence is much of a tighter area over here, but we have more to work with this here on this side of the fence. I'm gonna go ahead and use this one to tie lateral as well, and we'll do that later on once we get everything nice and pruned here on this this rose here. But again, it's 2 steps, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna apply them both at the same time, because again, this is not too big of a rose like the other one. And I'm just gonna go ahead and clean it up and make it look nice. Again, there's no old growth that I wanna get rid of here. All right, and there's Gertrude Jekyll on the other side of the fence. Not too much pruning on that one because it's got some pretty good some growth there. Those canes are not as thick as the other one, which is weird because it gets a lot more sun. But like I said, it's very easy pruning. It doesn't have to be complicated when it comes to pruning roses. But that's Gertrude Jekyll there. We're gonna go ahead and move on over to Teasing Georgia, because Teasing Georgia has a lot more thicker canes, and it's a truly beautiful rose. And the way we have it trained up on the wall there, last year it produced a lot of blooms. And I'm gonna see if I can post some pictures of that one, because that's one that I was not really too fond of because of the color. Angie absolutely loved that one, but I fell in love with it after it bloomed. Like I said, I wasn't too fond of Teasing Georgia because I didn't just want a regular yellow in the garden, but after seeing this one bloom, Angie calls this her golden hour area, because after I saw Teasing Georgia bloom, it reminded me of a strawberry lemonade color. That yellow is just absolutely gorgeous when it blooms on this this rose here. But again, like I said, this is probably one of the more prolific climbers that we had in the garden.
That gives flowers.
And because it gets plenty of sun here, you can already see a lot of the foliage on here, because this area does receive a lot more sun than Gertrude Jekyll. So
it's a part sun rose.
Yeah.
But it does really well. Way
Definitely.
Better in more sun.
Definitely. So we want to go ahead and prune this one. Again, we're looking for the dead and
That's gorgeous.
undesirable growth. And when I say dead, because this one does get a lot more sun and it does grow a lot more. Actually, Teasing Georgia was a potted rose when we bought it. It wasn't a
Oh, it wasn't from root?
Yeah, so Gertrude Jekyll's came in a 2-quart pot, right? So it's its own root.
Yes.
Teasing Georgia, because it's a bare root rose that we bought at a nursery, it's gonna be a little bit more prolific, and it's gonna be a little bit stronger and healthier when it grows, because it's already been growing on bare root. So you're gonna get, even in a 2nd year, 3rd year rose, you're gonna get some old wood already on there, just like this. This is what I pruned out, and you're gonna get some more mature growth out of it. For instance, look at this thick cane right here. It almost hurts me to prune this back. All right, so again, a lot of good growth looking on this this rose here, but I went ahead and pruned it off because you have some undesirable growth here, almost a lot of damage going on to it, and that's more than likely due to crossing branches. That's one thing you want to look for when it comes to climbing roses. Get rid of those crossing branches. I know it looks beautiful up here, a lot of foliage, but there's a lot of damage out here. Last thing you want is for that to get infected and then just affect the rest of the growth here, and then those black spot leaves carry on over to this stuff up here, and then by the time you know, you have black spot all over your rose here. All right, and then just like the other roses, I'm just going around and cutting the lateral shoots to about 2 to 5 buds to give it a nice little cleanup and let the rest of that growth just take off. And again, it may seem drastic, but it's gonna thank you once it starts to bloom, and then you're gonna jump for joy when you start seeing all these blooms all over the place looking beautiful with its color. So that's pretty much it with Teasing Georgia. It doesn't look like much, only because we have another rose right here. This is a shrub rose. I haven't gotten to all the shrub roses yet, so I'm gonna prune that up, make it look nice here. And then we're gonna do the rest of the roses and maybe come back with another video talking about how we're treating them and getting ready for spring. Okay guys, so that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you stuck around after the small tutorial in the very beginning, just to see the rest of the climbing roses get pruned, we greatly appreciate it. But again, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. We're gonna do some more videos covering, you know, how to peg some roses, because that's something we're gonna do in this garden as well, because we have some roses that are growing extremely long that are not climbers, but we want them to show a lot of growth. So that'll be a video we're doing as well. And then again, the maintenance for spring, how we're gonna fertilize them, how we take care of them, get them ready for insects and everything that comes along with the warm months coming up here in the next 2. So that's gonna do it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next one.